Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of the Dr. Music Podcast. If you are not a subscriber, please consider hitting that button. Hit the like button if you like what you see. Hit that subscribe button. It gives me a great opportunity to bring great guests like the two gentlemen I have today. I have drummer Michael Shrieve, best known for his time with legendary band Santana, his electrifying performance at the '69 Woodstock Festival, where he was just barely out of his teens at a young 20 years of age. He would go on to record with iconic artists like Steve Winwood, Jaco Pastorius, Hodgson of Supertramp, Sammy Hagar, Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones, and so many more. In 1998, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for his work with Santana. I also have today singer and guitarist Pete Hewlett, also an incredible career resume, having toured and recorded with legends like Billy Joel, Joe Jackson, Eric Carmen of The Raspberries, Carly Simon, Julian Lennon, many, many more. But for a short time in the early 80s, these two ambitious young gentlemen together formed a band called Novo Combo. They would tour with Greg Lake, The Who, Cheap Trick, but the band would come to an end after just a couple of years. We're going to find out a little bit why that happened and what the story was, and they give us the details of a new record that they have recorded 40 years later, 40 plus years later. The record is called 45 West 55th. They've recaptured that mood and feel of that first record, first two records. The new one is out now on Wild Roots Records. There'll be links to get it. But this really special conversation because Michael Shrieve takes us through his day at Woodstock. He tells us the stories of what it was like being 20 years old and being on stage with the Santana band. And singer and guitarist Pete Hewlett takes us to Russia and playing those Billy Joel shows and changing the world, really bringing Western culture, rock music to that part of the globe. Just incredible to hear these stories, and these two gentlemen take us there. It's pretty special. So sit back. It's about an hour-long conversation, so get yourself a drink, sit back, enjoy the conversation, and thank you so much for watching.
Good. Hey, Scott.
Hello, gentlemen. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. It's so great to have you guys. I appreciate it. Hey, you guys, you put this Novo Combo thing together. It hit my email box and it just blew me away. I saw Novo Combo and I thought to myself, this can't happen. This can't be possible, can it? And then I found out it's the four original guys. Just absolutely blew my mind. Had you guys kept in touch all these years? I mean, you're so busy. You guys are the busiest guys in the music industry. Constantly sessions and producing and all kinds of things that you do. Um, did you keep in touch with each other over all these years?
No, we were all so busy doing sessions and everything that we didn't have time to talk to each other.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I'm just joking. I don't know where you got the idea we were separate.
Yeah, it's years have gone by where we wouldn't be in touch with each other, and then all of a sudden, you call somebody, whatever the case may be, and then it's only been Michael and I have pretty much stayed in touch over the years. Uh, for me, Jack and Steven only maybe like up to a year and a half or so ago when we started talking about putting this project together, that we were more in communication with each other. But
Did, did did you have any reservations, any doubts that you could capture that magic that you had back then, or the sound, even the style, because it was a little bit ahead of its time. It doesn't sound dated, but to capture that same Fever, that's it. That was in the room at that time. Or anything like that. Did you have any reservation about getting it back together?
Well, I did, only because I don't like looking back. I rather move forward with new stuff. But the idea came from Steven, and he had found a bunch of. We did a lot of demoing back in New York City when we got together, before the record was out. We did a lot of great demos in good recording studios and really good engineers. And so we were fortunate to have a bunch of tapes, if not multi-track stereo masters, of some tunes that were already on the first album, but different takes of those tunes,
Mhm.
at a different iteration of a particular tune. And then we went through those, and then also, people started presenting new music as well that would work with, the Novo sound.
Yeah.
So, and I got with the program after a while, when I saw how much energy, Steven was putting a lot of energy into it, and I kind of was kicking and screaming, but I got into it finally. I'm proud of the record.
Yeah, you as you should be. Pretty amazing that I mean you're picking up what, 6 songs from the debut, but the new tunes are dispersed in between there.
Mhm.
The sequencing is great because it has one of the older tunes with one of the newer tunes. It seems to vacillate there, and there's no difference really. There's they sound like they were recorded at this in the same year and at the same time. They're just great songs with a similar vibe to them. Was that difficult to do?
I, it really wasn't. Example, Jack's tune uh,
Throw your
"Don't Give
love
Love
away.
Away."
Hmm.
That song he sent, and he asked me to write a middle eight for it and to add some vocals to it, and it just had that feel to it, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Thinking back to when the band was together, and that part of it was a lot of fun, and it was just to pick up on that energy again was a great feeling.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Like Michael, you say you don't like to look back so much, but it had to be a real a renaissance of sort to relive that. You had to be a great time if you guys still are in communication, and only lasted a couple of years there from 80 to 82 ish, 83 maybe.
Right.
Um, but it had to be a special thing. Revisiting that and getting that sound back had to warm the heart a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's been a real joy, doing these kind of Zooms and interviews and hanging out with the guys again. I mean, the music was a pleasure. That took quite a bit of time, but now that it's all done and the music is coming out and we're hanging out again, like on these Zoom meetings, that's been a real joy to just hang out with everybody, to be back in touch with everybody again.
Right. Right.
I'll tell you, it's a real joy for me, as a fan, seeing up Periscope on Solid Gold, never in a million years thinking I'd have you guys here and with a new record, is a crazy thought. Uh, and
Were
let's
you a,
talk.
were you a fan of the earlier albums?
Yeah, I remember that well. Yeah. But you guys kind of disappeared pretty fast. So
Yeah.
it was quick, and as we know, music fans, especially, I was younger at the time. Um, yeah, you move on, and but I remember it, kind of in that, with one hit wonders kind of things. So
Mhm.
that's why when I got it, I saw, Novo Combo, and I'm like, wait a minute, this it can't be right, but it is, and it's the four original guys, and that's so special for somebody who remembers the music, especially, and enjoyed it at that time. Then gets the same, like I say, the same vibe that you somehow you recapture that and bring it into 2024, and it's thrilling. It really is.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of once we got together and stuff, just revisiting what that time was like. I mean, we rehearsed every day, we wrote every day, we hung out all the time and everything.
Mhm.
And just to come back to that, not to like go back to the past, but it was just a great feeling
Yeah,
to
yeah,
reconnect that. Yeah, so.
I would imagine. Yeah, it's a great feeling for us. The new record's called 45 West 55th. Michael, that was your apartment in New York City, I understand,
Yeah.
where this all started, correct?
Yep, that's right. Midtown apartment between Fifth and Sixth. Um, that's where I first met Steven. And then later we got management, which was, about 6 blocks over. But it was kind of, central headquarters for the guys anyway, hanging out and stuff like that.
Yeah. So the
Yeah.
the title is kind of a full circle thing as well,
Mhm.
restarting where you started. It's pretty cool. Um, were you concerned starting this like you have some new tunes with the writing because everybody's changed a little, I would imagine. You guys have done different things in that period of time. Um, Does he write the same way? Does he play the same way? Does he sing the same way? All of those musical concerns before you started getting into this, were those present in your mind? They had to be, right?
Sure. I
Yeah.
was gonna say, like for me, the Novo Combo stuff, I was singing in the stratosphere, and this is 40 years later, and
Right.
there were parts that, yeah, it's like how am I going to do this? So, but we were able to pull it off. It's adding guitar parts to things, just sweetening different tracks, that sort of thing. It came around pretty easily.
Yeah. Like I say, these songs just blend. I mean, it's perfect canvas. Uh, Novo Combo. Um, I've never seen any talk about the origin of the name of the band. I've tried to put some logic to it and figure it out. Novo Combo. Where did the name of the band come from?
Well, we had a few other names prior to this, and it turned out that one of them was called Soldier,
Right.
and we even had some press pictures made up and everything. But then there was a band called Soldier apparently, and so I've always been a fan of Brazilian music and the Portuguese language, and it sounded cool, and it just means new group, Novo Combo. So it was pretty simple, but I I still love the sound of it. Novo Combo is a cool
Yeah, it's a
name.
Yeah,
good name.
it definitely is. It definitely
Who
is. And I
who
was
owns that, by the way, Michael? Do you know?
What's that?
Who owns that name? Do you know?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. At least I know.
I love it.
It
um,
could be some other people that, what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going through some of that trademark stuff now with some other business, and that's a whole world.
Mm.
yeah, that's the uglier, darker side of the music business, right?
Yeah, any business. Yeah.
Like I said, there's six songs that got reworked for this from the '81 debut, and one from Animation Generation, the next album, the second album. Any specific reason for choosing those particular songs? Did you feel like was there something about them you didn't like, or something you always wanted to change, or how did you choose those particular songs?
Well, I think that we did have other options. I think there was some differentiation between these and what turned out to be on the record, but we all felt that we had a selection to choose from, and we all felt that these offered something fresh, well, something different than the ones that were released, but were very good renditions of the song itself. And so it seemed representative. And, a record like this, I mean, you're putting it out for Novo Combo fans in a lot of way. And so it's more of a gift to people that already are familiar with the band. And I mean, hopefully you always hope for new people to listen, and we're trying to do that.
Mhm.
But it's kind of like, oh wow, here's this version that we did that perhaps you haven't ever heard, and might be delightful for you. And plus, here's a few new songs that if you like the sound of what we were, we can still put that together as well.
Yeah.
And
No,
there were ways that we were looking, like how far do we go with the sound, like in presenting new possibilities of songs, new material. Well, I mean, whereas I thought I presented some, and I thought, man, we could do this really well as a band, and the other guys didn't go for it. You know what I mean?
right.
Yeah.
So that's a process in a band where you you have to let everybody give their opinion. It's either that or you just push so hard you bug everybody enough to give in.
Yeah, I mean,
I was gonna say, I think the
yeah,
quality of what we chose as well, those tracks actually sound good. There were some songs that we would love to have had on the record, but the quality of the recordings weren't that up
Right,
to snuff.
okay.
right.
So that
Yeah.
entered it into the choosing the record or the songs for the record as well.
Did any of the songs, did you start them from scratch right now, or did you take pieces of what you had, demos and what you had recorded earlier?
Yeah,
Oh,
more so pieces of what we had. I would
Okay.
say. Say that, Michael.
I think there was some one of Steven's songs. Well, yeah, we redid "Slow Fade." We redid, a couple of his songs that way. But weren't there some that were brand new? Well,
Temporary.
Jack's was
Temporary was brand new.
and
Stevens too.
temporary. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jack's tune was brand new, and that's I mean, he threw it my way. We didn't get together in the studio at all, but he sent the stuff, and I added parts to it, that kind of thing. But we actually didn't like start from scratch in a studio or in a situation where we were laying things out
Right.
from scratch.
What about what's been happening to you, Pete?
Mm.
That one, that was like really a forgotten track, but that's actually my favorite one on the record. I love
Yeah,
that
Yeah,
song.
I
me
do
too.
too.
And I think we probably did it at Media or before we had a record deal, Media or the other, I forget the other studio that we went to, but um, that's when I completely forgot about that song altogether. And then I think you brought that one, didn't you, Michael? Did
I,
you bring that one
I
up?
think so, and I keep saying this that I always thought it should be slower tempo, and I slowed it down and I presented it to Pete, and I think I presented it to Jack. I don't know if it ever got to Steven, but by the time the record came out, I hadn't pushed for it enough, and it was at the original tempo, which sounds too fast to me. So
Mhm.
what's on the record to me sounds too fast, but it does fit in with the time and the vibe of Novo Combo during that period where it was kind of like, punk pop sort of, everything's up tempo, and
Yeah, yeah.
um, but to me it grooves better if it's at a slower tempo. Maybe we do a remix or something on that just for fun and slow it down, and
That would
not a
be cool.
remix, but call it a remix.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be cool to hear. I love it just the way it is, and it is my favorite track on the record. I really,
That's cool.
it is, yeah. Well, and I think because it's a new track, one, but it's an old track as well.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? If you told me that you did that in '81 and just put it on the record, I would believe you. It is. It fits right in. It's so in the pocket with what you guys were doing back in the day
Right.
that I get to relive the record. I get more of the first record, which thrills me to death. It just does. I always wanted more of that record.
Yeah.
Now I kind of get that, but a new record. Pretty great. Michael, I know you just released a new record called Drums of Compassion. Uh,
Uh,
it that was in May of this year, and it can't get any more distant than Novo Combo. It's a world music record. It is atmospheric. It's a spiritual record, and it's just and I can say when I was painting my son's room in 1997, I found a Babatunde Olatunji African rhythm record, and I lived with that record, painting his room uh, in my firstborn. So when I hear those rhythms, and I know he's on the record, I relive the birth of my son, and it's so personal to me. Um, but you do this, and it's this deep, little darker, more serious, meditative. And then you do Novo Combo, which is a fun record. It's a light record. It's a happy record. It's a very different record. Is that a broad, such a broad change? Is that hard to adjust to? Did that have any impact on the way you played the Novo Combo record?
no, but it does speak to my resistance of like getting back into like something we've done 30 years ago, because I'm in such a different place. Um, on the other hand, Novo Combo is a part of my DNA, and so um, I have within me the ability to to travel through time. I could put myself there and hook up with the guys again. I know that I was very aware of how different Drums of Compassion a record it is than Novo Combo, and even for people who listen to some of my music aren't even familiar with Novo Combo. So, but we are all multifaceted, and they're both a part of me. So
Yeah, yeah,
so
and that's it speaks volumes to your musicianship for sure. All of you guys are just brilliant. And for those who aren't aware, Pete played with Billy Joel and the Russian, the first Russian rock broadcast over there that
Right. Hmm.
changed everything for half the world. Those shows, and Joe Jackson and Eric Carmen and Carly Simon, and just all of these different things, and then you hear this Novo Combo record, and you realize that these guys can do anything. And of course Michael with Santana and just the Stones and Jaco, uh and then you hear this Novo Combo record, and you have this legacy of pure musicianship that it feels like you guys could do anything. um have you talked about working together more? Maybe another Novo Combo record, maybe something else. Has that been any part of your discussions?
yeah, there's been some discussion about perhaps doing this kind of thing again.
Yay.
In the same with the same process, because we've been doing this just online, and so
Great.
that's interesting. But do you mind if I ask Pete a question, Scott?
Please do. Please do.
Pete, what was it like working with Joe Jackson?
Different. It was fantastic. He's really he's a different guy. But it
Yeah.
was, I mean, it was the way we did that album was four band members, four singers, and Joe, three band members. So it was a three-piece band, Joe, and four singers. And it was a live recording.
Oh.
It was a concert, but it was a live recording. And when we did it, it might have been the Stones mobile unit is where it was done down on 14th Street at a Shakespearean theater. And people received a piece of paper and it said, you are attending a concert, but at the same time you're attending a recording, uh, making of a recording a la studio. could you please hold your applause till the song is completely finished? So we're on stage like it's a concert, but the producer would come across on the monitor and say, Joe, can we do that again? There was something with this or whatever. So that part of it was fantastic. And just Joe's ideas and the way he approached things was like something I've never, probably will never see again. Unique person.
Yeah.
I was gonna say
Super talented. Yeah.
his music has always been kind of edgy and groundbreaking, kind of.
And every album that he's done has been completely different from the one before, which is
Yeah.
pretty amazing,
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty great, pretty great. Why did the band? Why did we not have another Novo Combo record back then? You guys just found other work and put it to the side. Why did the band break up back in the day?
Well, we started hating each other, that kind of thing. The usual band stuff, No, Pete, you tell him. You tell him the truth.
We hated each other. We really didn't get along, and no, it was. I think what happened was when we did the original album, we formed together as almost we were like brothers. We worked every day on everything. We found a great producer in Chris Kimsey, who Michael was working with the Rolling Stones at the time. Chris agreed to do the record. Chris fit perfectly for what we were at the time. And when it came time to do the second record, for whatever reason, our management and Chris Kimsey it just didn't pan out, which put us in a position. And also, Jack Griffith had left the band. I never knew the reason why. Michael, if you knew it, I never knew what it was. But it had something to do with our management as well. So it left us with having to find a new guitar player and a new producer. So we auditioned guitar players, and we never really found Jack. We never found, the member. Although we had Carlos Rios played guitar, who's one of the greatest guitar players in the world. Great guy, got along the whole thing, and we had Elliot Shiner produce the second record. Elliot Shiner, of course, is Steely Dan, Earth, Wind, and Fire. What it was, the way I feel, is our whole vibe being in New York City, and the group when it started was totally different than what the second album was. It was slicker in the production of things.
Yeah.
The new member, Carlos, his parts are fantastic, but it didn't have the element that we had with the original record.
Right.
And then we were on the road. We were doing great things. We opened for The Who a couple shows. We toured with Cheap Trick at the time, Greg Lake and Gary Moore, and blah, 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 just different things. And at a point, we were out west and found out that the record company was pulling back, that they didn't know if they wanted to pick up our option on the next record, which left us with, do we have to go through all that again and, audition for record companies and, try to work out a new deal. And we also found out at the time there was no more money. There was, things weren't being paid at home, and it kind of left a really bad taste for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think when we got back to New York, it was kind of, I know I did. I just felt like I didn't want to go on. It was like I'd given my heart and soul to this whole thing. And it was great, and as great as the bands were and everything, it was just, and thinking back, it was like maybe should have gone through the sophomore jinx and went on and made a fourth album and a third, fourth, fifth album, and see what happens then. But we didn't. So
yeah,
I think a lot of it had to do with our choice of guitar players, and Carlos Rios was L.A. based for one thing. I was interested in him because of his work with Gino Vanelli, the records, and other stuff. That he was just kind of brilliant.
Really?
So he agreed to come out, but he added a whole different thing to us, and he added like an L.A. slickness to us.
Right.
And Elliot was like a part of that new slickness, like even sonically, whereas Chris Kimsey is really more of an analog guy, like rock and roll.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then to tell you the truth, and this is the kind of thing that you learn with wisdom in time, like for instance, when Jack presented his new tune, right? For this album, you realize, man, Jack's parts on all the tunes for the first album were so brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, like Pete said, we rehearsed every day. We weren't messing around, and we had management that would help us to, you know, create that situation. So, but what I'm getting to is there's a certain chemistry
Mm-hmm.
that
Right.
that sometimes you don't even realize it until many years later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's
You know,
it. It,
you know, like yeah, like I'm sorry, I never should have left you, baby.
and that's the great thing. That's the great thing about you guys all getting back together. It's like magic. It's there again. It's poof.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
back. Really cool. Um, I'd be remiss not to ask about that show in Russia with Billy for you, and Michael, your time at Woodstock. I had Doug Clifford on the show a while back, and he told me about coming over the hill at Woodstock and seeing all those people, and it was a really happy day for him. But he was, they were also very, very sober. One of the, one of the few of the time, possibly. But everybody, and I think maybe everybody had a different experience. So if you guys would tell me your memories of those days, going to Russia for you, and you know, seeing those people, and it had to be amazing for you, Pete, just to be a part of something that monumental, because Western culture coming over to those people that they hadn't had any of that up until that point. So that had to be something. And Michael, of course, with Woodstock. If you guys would just tell me about those days for you.
You go, Pete.
Um, I was actually involved at the time with a Broadway show. Andrew Lloyd Webber had just Starlight Express, and I thought this would be great. This would be not a rock band, whatever. But anyhow, that didn't pan out. And at the same time, the tour was going to Russia, and I had a choice of hanging back and seeing the show. And the show was on roller skates, which I wasn't into. So when I found out the tour was going to Russia, and it was kind of a somewhat of a decision, but I thought I will never have a chance to go to the USSR, let alone with a band and a production of this magnitude. So I opted to do the tour. Um,
Any regrets?
you know what? Other than maybe the money I would have made if I stayed in New York, but no, other than that.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that doesn't because people were saying, Pete, stay in New York, buddy. You gotta stay. But I opted not to. No, I don't have any regrets, I got to say. Um, Going over there was, we grew up with all the propaganda and everything about Russia. And,
Mhm.
when we left Frankfurt, Germany to fly to Moscow, it was like the pilot came on and said, we're now entering Soviet airspace. And you're expecting to see MiGs, I don't know when.
Right.
So, but briefly, the experiences were great because I landed in Moscow. First of all, I want to say the people were absolutely wonderful. They were just fantastic, hungry for whether it was Levi's, Marlboro Reds, NFL ball caps, the Gospel of John. It's just they
Wow.
wanted the West. They did not want to live, and the oppression was just like it was incredible. It's a truck would pull up at a store, and there'd be a line immediately, like up and down the block. And I remember saying our interpreter, I said, "What?" He said, "Could be shirts, could be eggs, could be whatever. People are in line for it." And I'm thinking, wow. But the people were so fantastic and loving. They just, were they saw Western bands had come in previous to Billy's thing, but not on that scale.
Yeah.
So anyway, we landed in Moscow and went to a group, not the whole entourage, went to Tbilisi in Georgia. And we went to the Ural Mountains and sang with 7 Soviet journalists who knew all these great folk songs from like the 2nd, 3rd century. They were like historic, beautiful, spiritual pieces. We
Wow.
went to the Ural Mountains to a mission up there and sang. It was Billy and Russell Jabbers and myself and Mark Rivera, and they would do their thing, and which was absolutely incredible. It was so, how could you explain it? You knew it was like from centuries and centuries ago.
Yeah.
And just to throw this in, and we'd come back with, as we stroll along to, we're singing doo-wop stuff, and they would come back with this. But anyhow, that was a funny part of it. Then we had an impromptu concert that we did at the Opera House in Tbilisi, unannounced, just word of
Wow.
mouth, and the place was packed. And we had a couple musicians from Tbilisi who came up and played, and that part of it was fantastic. After that, we went to Moscow. A couple days later, we went to Moscow, and that's what started the concert. The regular thing we were there for, and it was a cultural exchange. It was I'm pretty sure the Bolshoi either or the orchestra, symphony orchestra, and the ballet in exchange for Billy Joel.
Yeah.
So the first concert, the first night we played, it was kind of weird. We did 3 or 4 songs, and people kind of applauded. They were sitting in the front seats. And it was almost like looking at a painting. And it was obviously people from the Politburo or whatever got the tickets. They're the ones that had the front row seats. In the meantime, in the back, there were people carrying on and screaming and yelling and the whole thing. And it was, the people who bought tickets, whatever. And Billy said, why don't you come up here to the front? It was just like they were on it. They were down front. We could have been in Detroit, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, New York, wherever, and they were on fire. They loved it. They knew the words to the songs, and that's pretty much how the rest of the shows went. We played Moscow. We played Leningrad. One of the crazy things was because it was crowded and people were moving and they're dancing and the whole thing. Was their security was military.
Yeah.
AKs, and it was kind of frightening on both sides. Our security met with theirs, and they kind of calmed it down for the shows after that, and it became like we could have been anywhere in the States or, in Europe, wherever. And we did things like we went to a studio in Gorky Park that was government subsidized, and met with musicians and hung out and the whole thing. The trip itself was absolutely, there's so much that I could tell you, but it was just, to me, the main things were the people, how beautiful they were, how kind they were to us, and just the experience of playing for them over there was wonderful.
That is so great.
So I have no regrets, having gone through that at all.
That's
Yeah,
great.
I had the opportunity a few years back to play concerts in Moscow and St. Petersburg, and I had never been to either. I was doing a duet show with a guitar player named Estas Tone, and it was an incredible experience. I mean, plus his manager was Russian who lived in Siberia, but he would take us to like his favorite restaurant in Moscow, and then in St. Petersburg, which was just a city that I found that I knew nothing about. And when I got home, my wife and I, who had come with me, we just learned everything we could about Russian history in St. Petersburg.
Mm-hmm.
And he took us like on boat rides through the canals and everything as a tour of St. Petersburg during the day, and it's just incredible history. The history of the Russians and even St. Petersburg, where he built a city to get away from Moscow because they were not forward thinking enough.
That's where the Summer Palace is, right?
Yeah,
Right.
and it's just unbelievable. And I got a bunch of pictures of being outside of it, and But one of the things was about Peter, um, he learned, he was young, and he did two things. He went to Amsterdam and stayed there for a long time and learned all about canals. And I didn't realize that in St. Petersburg there's canals all over the place. And then for warfare, he went to England and he stayed there for a long time and learned about naval warfare, you know.
Hmm.
And so when he came back, he was like prepared to start making a city, which was,
Wow.
yeah. I mean, you think about it, like,
Wow.
it's like, okay, I'm going to make my own city and let the guys in Moscow, and then the intrigue in that history is really something. But
Wow.
Yeah.
That is,
yeah, so I consider myself really fortunate to have at least been able to do that trip prior to now.
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah. And that's, and I've had the ability to go different places in the world and see different cultures, and my kids have as well. And with my daughter in college, she went to see Africa, something I haven't done. Um,
Hmm.
and just to see how the other half lives, the other side of the fence, to experience what they think is a good day, as opposed to what we might consider a good day, are two very drastic, different things. They don't expect much, where we might expect a little more. But it really grounds you as a human being, and to see those things and to learn how other people live. Really something special. And like I say, in that tour in 1987, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Uh, just, really a game changer for modern Western music over there. Broadcast, it was something they had never done. So yeah, that was a revolutionary thing. And
Yeah, and it was right when Perestroika, Glasnost was happening too. So it was like you could feel the change just happening, and it was cool to be there at that time.
yeah, pretty special.
Yeah.
Michael, take me through Woodstock.
Oh man, do I have to?
You're barely 20 years old, just out of your teens. You're thrown in with with the Santana band, which you hadn't recorded yet, right? Or had just maybe recorded that first record.
Yeah.
Uh, that had to be what an intense day for you. A good day?
Oh yeah, it was a good day. I mean, the whole trip. We had recorded the album; it was not released yet, and so I mean, I forgot that too for many years, and then realized later these people we won these people over, and we did they nobody was familiar with any of our music, so
Right.
that's a big deal. But the reason that I think it worked is because the crowd was very tribal, and the Santana music was very tribal. It was just a wall of rhythm, and it was undeniable. There's nothing you can do about it. And so, but the whole summer leading up to it, Bill Graham was a kind of co-managing the band. He loved the band, and and so he told us about this festival that was happening. They, Michael Lang and the other producers, asked Bill Graham to help them because they found they were over their heads. Um, and so Bill was probably more establishment than they desired, but Bill had already proven himself with Fillmore East, Fillmore West, and everything else.
Yeah.
So he came in on the conditions that he could select a few bands of his to play, you know, to recommend a few bands. And they gave them a short list. They gave Michael Lang a short list, and they chose Santana with a tape. And so Bill prepared us, really took us down like a father, and said, "There's going to be a festival, and it's going to change your lives." And you're going to have to get ready for it ahead of time because everything's going to be different. And
Mm.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you on the road and prepare you to play these festivals because we've just been playing in California and basically, we were
Right.
very popular, but not outside of that area. So that summer leading up to it, we played like Denver Pop Festival, Dallas Pop Festival, Miami Pop Festival, some others that were big, considered big festivals with big lineups. Basically, all the big groups of the day um, to to help us season ourselves and be ready for a big gig.
Mhm.
However, and so we got to Woodstock of like 2 weeks earlier. We rented a house, um, and so we set up the gear in the living room so we could play anytime we want, and it was nice, in Woodstock. And I remember Greg Raleigh talking about he was taking a ride in a car driving down, and there was this guy that was like going so slow, um, and he got really like edgy about it, So finally, he found a place to pass them, and he passed the guy, and it was Jimi Hendrix, who was living in Woodstock, and he was like high as a kite, like just driving.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember going to some waterfall a swimming hole where you could jump off the cliff, and so then a few days prior to the festival, we started hearing about on the news the traffic problems that were um, mounting because of the amount of people coming. And it soon became um, obvious that something was going on here out of the ordinary. And and then that people were leaving their cars and walking to the festival, which closed down the throughways. And that was unheard of. So it was a big deal already. And then we found out, that we couldn't drive to the festival. So we were all going to a certain Holiday Inn in that area. All the bands were meeting there, um, and and then taking a helicopter to the site. You know, I think our helicopter also had Janis Joplin and Jerry Garcia, some members of those bands. And then when we were in the air over the festival site to see all those people, we were all just astounded by the amount of people because
Yeah.
none of us had ever seen that amount of people together ever, and I mean not even in the movies type of thing.
Right.
So, well, maybe Ben Hur, but so we arrived and it was a little bit of a mess backstage. Good vibe though, really good vibe. Everybody's hanging out and um, and it's I know it sounds weird. You're hanging out there, so Grateful Dead and Janis Joplin and this that, but those people we already knew each other from San Francisco, right?
Right.
So a lot of these people, um, well, another thing you learn, like in after time, like for instance, I was going to play with the Jefferson Airplane before Santana,
Okay.
and people don't know that, and it never happened. But the first airplane ride I ever took was with Yorma and Jack from Jefferson Airplane,
Wow.
and I'm staying with them in a hotel, and you know Eric Clapton comes and visits with a cassette tape of a group he was really excited about called The Band. And the record wasn't out yet, speaking of Woodstock. And
Wow.
Jim Morrison comes over and hangs out. But it's before Jim Morrison was a mythological figure,
Right. Right. He
He was
was just a guy. Right.
just a singer in a band,
Right.
like uh, like that. And then that night we go to the studio and David Crosby comes and brings a song that he was suggesting for the airplane that the Birds didn't want to do because it was too controversial. It was called Triad, and so I felt like that guy in the Tom Hanks movie, you know. Well, I was in all these situations where these people were,
Oh, yeah.
uh, and so yeah, so he sat down and you know, I heard them teaching the airplane that song, and later David and I became good friends. So going to Woodstock, it was kind of like, you know, in a lot of ways, it was like family already.
Right.
And there was some discrepancy about when we were supposed to go on, but I mean, I'll never forget being there and seeing Jimi Hendrix. I mean, who am I thinking? Richie Havens, like start the show. I remember that very well.
Yeah.
I remember, um, I remember Arlo Guthrie, you know, like, and I remember because in my mind it was kind of like I was never a hippie, you know,
Yeah.
in my head. I was never. I was like I always considered myself a musician and not so much part of that thing. Although of course I was.
Right.
But I remember Arlo Guthrie saying, you know, like we did it, man. You know, it's like I remember thinking at that moment, it's like, you know, I'm not a part of that we. You know, I don't think like that. I don't even think like that. Like we did it, man. You know,
Right.
and John Sebastian, the same thing. And John was a friend too. I mean, I got my first tie dye stuff from John Sebastian in the village. You know,
Right.
he became a friend, and the John was so fucked up. He was so high, but you know, it was very exciting. I get it. You know, I'm not putting them down, but I remember on a personal level that I didn't think of myself like that, and nor did the band Santana. We were we we were not a you know, it's like I said in the speech I gave at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I said moving in with these guys when I joined that band, I soon realized this was no hippie love thing. This was like a street gang, and the weapon was music. So the Santana guys were like, you know,
Street guys.
it was not like yeah, it was not like it's a beautiful day, you know, type of vibe or
Right.
something like that, you know, like Whitebird. It was more like your mama, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and so when we were playing and when we did play, we always played on the stage in a small, pretty small circle type of thing. We
Right.
played to each other, like it's more like kind of jazz musicians. We didn't consider ourselves like in a row, like entertainers. We always felt like if we could excite each other musically, then that would come naturally with the audience, which it did.
Yep.
And so, fortunately, we had that going for us once we got on the stage at Woodstock. And you look out there and you see it's just like you're standing on the beach at the ocean, and all there is water and then sky. And it was like that with the people, you know,
Wow.
Mm.
it was just a sea of people. And so, and also we were very high and not real close to them, you know. As
Yeah.
opposed to Altamont, where it was like like a 1 foot stage, and the people were right there, and the Hell's Angels like on the stage itself. Whole
Yeah.
different ball game, like scary,
Yeah.
and and so the distance was really something as well, you know. Um, but I felt perfectly comfortable being there, and I know that the performance. This is like how we performed every night, though, you know. And
Yeah.
it's not even the best. I mean, Carlos was really struggling and but I understand it when I look at the film, which of course I do twice a day, you know. I hardly watch it, but people I'm in, I am moved by the amount that it still moves people. Um and I when I see it, I understand it because of the intensity and the energy and the youthfulness, you know. It's just
Yep.
like and it's so intense and
It
so
really
joyous.
is.
So it's actually like when you watch the film, there's really like this frequency coming off the film. It's you
Hmm.
know I can't explain it, but I get it. I
Yep.
mean, next year we played a place called Tanglewood, and it was a much better show. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
um, but it doesn't matter to people. You know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It was just like something happened that day, and they filmed it, and
Yeah.
And so, that's the way it is. What's been remarkable is still to this day how much it moves people. And I fought it for a long time that this was like the only thing people talk to me about.
Uh,
When I was living in New York City with Novo Combo guys, I think it was during that period when I finally made up my mind to just like accept it and be grateful, rather than
Hmm.
always saying, "Oh, have you heard this?" or "Have you heard this?" Or it's like nobody fucking cared. Uh, so I just made a decision. I think I was walking down Fifth Avenue, Pete, and this guy he was the son of we played in Nicaragua. He was son of the famous dictator, and I'd met him at the palace because we had dinner there, and he was like, "Michael, you remember me?" And I'm like, and like I think I'm like in my 30s or something. Then he said, "Man, you're getting older," and I'm like, I'm like, "What the fuck?" And I said, "Man, so are you," and but at that point, people would say that, and I just came to the conclusion, like, just like accept it, be grateful that people still appreciate something that you did that many years ago, and it kind of frees you up. Then you can really do anything you want to do. Then, you know.
yeah. Yeah, there's a certain mystique about that particular day, that that Woodstock Festival, that just is it's appealing to people. It's no matter what it sounded like or anything else, there is a certain majestic thing that people hold close.
It's a milestone in history. It's just,
Yeah,
In rock concert history, definitely, and
yeah,
cultural history, and also like the five other Woodstock festivals that came after it never matched it, and also were cluttered with violence. I actually played one of the
yeah.
other festivals and never told anybody.
Oh, who'd you play with?
I played with an Italian singer named Zucchero.
Oh yeah, yeah,
same
yeah.
guy you were in Russia with. No, different
Oh,
guy.
that's a different guy. Yeah, but
Oh,
yeah,
Zucchero is huge. Yeah,
Zucchero is like the Billy Joel of Italy.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
Uh,
Okay. I know who he
absolutely.
is.
Yeah,
Springsteen and stuff. Great guy, but I saw that everybody else that was from the first festival, like Richie Havens and other people too, were all doing interviews on CNN and like this, that, and the other. And I said, I'm not going to go there. I don't even. I just want to do my job here, and I don't want to reminisce and tell me what's the difference. And it's like I'd go and do the gig, but I remember Nine Inch Nails played that festival as well, and but boy, the violence at some of those festivals was just,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Different time, a different time.
Yeah, which
Absolutely.
that speaks to the time when it
It
really was
definitely does.
that us versus them thing was important because it spoke to the people who really wanted to be peaceful.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's part of the majesty of the first one
Right.
is you had all those people all in one space and no problems.
Yeah.
It's
Hmm.
just peace and love and music.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. Of course, you play with a young Neil there and a Greg Raleigh. Uh,
Oh, Neil wasn't there.
oh, Neil wasn't there. Oh, okay. He was part of the Santana band right after that, then, right?
The third album.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He
I
was
thought,
after Braxis. Braxis was second, then the third album. Um,
okay, because he was very, very young, like yourself at the time.
he was so
Yeah.
young. Greg,
Yeah.
Greg Raleigh used to pick him up at high school, you know, take him to places. And there was a day when Neil had to make a choice. He was invited. He had sat in with Eric Clapton at the Berkeley Community Theater, and that was during when Layla was out.
Hmm.
Sat in and played with Eric in the band, and he had to make a choice. Do you want to join Eric Clapton's band or Santana? And he's like, so he goes back to high school, and then it's like, yeah, I have to make a choice. It's pretty bizarre.
Wow. Wow, and he's done pretty good
Tough
for
one.
himself. Did he ever approach you about a Journey gig? He took Greg with him.
Oh, no, they
No.
started Journey because they hated where me and Carlos were going musically, and
Oh.
so I consider myself one of the instigators of Journey being started, literally, because the manager of Journey was a roadie for Santana, and he was so pissed off at Caravanserai, the direction of Caravanserai. Me and Carlos were on, and he was really pissed, and so were the other guys.
Uh,
Um, so that's when Journey started. So no, they wouldn't dare ask me to be in Journey. I did do that Sammy Hagar record with Neil Sean. Yeah,
and I loved it. Yeah, the HSAS Aronson Shreve thing. Loved it. Was that a good experience for you?
it was great. It was it was it was well run. It was run by that ex roadie of ours who was the manager of Journey, who became turned out to be brilliant, Herbie
Herbie
Herbert.
Herbert. Yeah, yeah.
And so we rehearsed and played a bunch of gigs and filmed them all and recorded them all, and it was there for a month in and out. Um,
Wow.
and then from there, I took a train up North California, and that's when I did Roger Hodgson, first Roger Hodgson record right after that.
Brilliant.
And
Brilliant.
I was living in New York City. That's when we were still doing Novo Combo, I believe. But um, yeah, it was a great experience. I mean, Sammy Hagar said it best in his autobiography about, yeah, we had Michael Shrieve playing drums. Now, Michael's a great rhythmic drummer, but he's not exactly a rock drummer.
Ah,
Uh, I
no,
remember
no.
drinking coffee when I was reading that, and I spit out the coffee. I laughed so hard, and I said, he's right. I really get it.
Yeah, and I think that's, it doesn't sound like, but I think that is a compliment. You are not limited to being a rock drummer. You can do it, but
Not
listen
really.
to the Drums of Compassion record, and that's not something everybody can do. And everything in between, of course, the Santana work, just brilliance all the way around. So, yeah.
What I've found in is that you know don't do what you can't do. Do what you can do, and really do it the best you can. And I mean, even when I go back and play with Carlos, I can't play with them. It's because they're so loud. You know, I mean, I don't even hit the drum that hard. I started taking some drum lessons from Alice Cooper's drummer. Um,
Glenn Sobel?
yeah, Glenn Solo. I took a
Yeah.
couple of lessons from Glenn. It's like, dude, teach me how to hit the drum harder, and how do I do like single stroke fills that sound good? Because I'm a double stroke and I play light, really. I
Right.
play dynamically. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, yeah.
For the life of me, I don't hit the drum as hard as those people, and so I completely understand it, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that's okay. There's a place for everybody.
Yep, absolutely. And we appreciate what you've done in your career, not just Woodstock. uh, so much in your career. Pete, same thing. There's so many things that, you can talk for hours and hours about your resumes. It's just so expansive and so important. So many important things. You guys, true legends. And Novo Combo, this little itty bitty speck in your resume. Uh, you treat it like it's something. You treat it like a Woodstock. You treat it like
Sure.
a co-op concert. It's a special, special thing, and I love that. I love
Thank you.
that
When you
because
think about it, it's just being blessed to be a part of all those things. It's just
Yeah.
tremendous.
yeah, yeah,
Scott,
and
may I ask you what's your cat's name?
oh, look at him. He is Goblin. He
Goblin.
He had a brother too, and Spooky, but he's gone. So I hold Goblin's about 17 years old now. Uh,
Wow.
and he's doing great, but I don't know how much longer he's going to be doing great, but I treasure this little guy. He's here every time I sit down at my desk. That's pretty special, Yeah.
Well, it was great talking to you, Scott.
You too, man. I so
Yeah,
appreciate
pleasure,
you
man.
guys. Thank you so much for all your time. Yeah, if you guys ever need anything, please, my door is always open.
Thank
Where,
you, man.
All right.
where are you? Where's your door?
Huh? Yeah, yeah, right there. You see it back there. I know you see it. Just put your hand on that knob and give it a knock and come on in, man. All right.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Be well, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
All right. Bye-bye.